welcome to the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism, where we attempt to apply logic and reason to religion and politics. I'm here with my wonderful, beautiful co-host, Christy Santiago.
And Mr. Bean. Hello, guys. Happy Friday. We have a fabulous Happy Friday topic for you guys tonight. Mr. Bean's very upset about this topic. He's been upset about it for 2 weeks that I've been doing what I do for 2 weeks. Everything changed this morning, so did my story. So I have something different than I was going to share with you guys. Mac is going to talk, and I'm going to get this dog to sit down and pretend that he's the boss, because then he's like, okay, everything's good. Okay.
Fair enough.
Talk, Mac.
I got it. All right, I can talk. First off, thanks for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. Let's see who's here down in the chat. First off, thanks. And I can hear myself. That's not good. All right, so all right, we have Josh, we have Pamela, we have RB. Thank you guys all for showing up. And let's see. First things first, there has been a ceasefire as of 2 a.m. I believe that is their time. I don't know what time that is. But that was as of 2 a.m. Like pretty much, you could say like our this morning. And it seems to have really calmed down since then, at least the actual like war type fighting. But there's other things going on, which is basically just back to basics and the struggle of Gazans every day. But we're not going to cover that yet because we're going to come back to it. Starting back at the beginning is not an easy thing to do. As far as I'm concerned, I think Christy feels the same. But we first got news about 11 or 12 days ago that Hamas has fired rockets towards Israel. And that's true. That's true. They fired rockets towards Israel. And Israel's Iron Dome defense took care of most of those missiles, but some still got through and hurt or killed some civilians. The body count as of the ceasefire overall, because I don't know in timeline who died when, is 12 Israelis have been killed, including a 9-year-old and a 16-year-old. And 230 people have died on the Gaza side. And that is including, I believe, 65 children and 39 women. And I would like to point this out real quick, that Israel claims that they killed at least 130 fighters.
They're all terrorists.
Yes, but probably more. And Hamas and Islamic Jihad claims that they lost 20 fighters. And now if you do the math of the women and children, it's like about 110, which leaves, kind of close to what Israel said just in men. Like, all the men were terrorists, right? It's kind of a bullshit number, I think. And also, again, Hamas and Islamic Jihad claimed that they had lost 20, and they're still unburying some of their dead, but the count still stands.
Right, because they wouldn't let them go out and get any of their dead. They'd just keep picking them off. So a lot of people died long, painful deaths with nobody at their side because people were too scared to go out.
Yeah.
I'm different after this story. I don't know about you, but I'm different after 2 weeks of this. How can you be a people that survived the Holocaust and do this?
Yeah, it's it is quite the phenomenon, really.
Yeah.
I've heard so many Jewish people um, come out and talk about the atrocities that have been going on in Palestine. And I would like to make clear, because we're getting ahead of ourselves as far as a narrative from beginning to now, as of like 12 days ago, goes. Um, they these people that I've listened to, where one specific Dr. Mate, um, his grandparents were in Auschwitz,
Yep.
and I think he himself, if I'm thinking of the right guy or the one he was talking to, was also in Auschwitz, and also almost died himself as an infant. Um, like, he knows people who lived through this, and he lived through it, and he also grew up as a Zionist Jewish person. And when he went to Gaza for 2 weeks, he said he cried for every day of those 2 weeks,
Yeah.
because how could I have bought into this my entire life, this atrocious lie?
Right.
Because the living conditions of people in the West Bank and in Gaza um, are inhumane, to say in the friendliest way. It's absolutely atrocious, and
Yes. It's
what
an apartheid.
it is an apartheid, and that is something that I wanted to define, and I
That we
forgot to.
fund, that American taxpayers fund.
Apartheid definition. Is a noun, a policy or system of segregation or discrimination on grounds of race. Um, yeah, so it fits the definition, and if you don't know why, you can always ask Christy or I for resources, because there are plenty, and it's not just papers written, it's not just hearsay. Like, we have plenty of video of the Israeli Defense Forces and Israeli police showing this kind of discrimination and segregation. This is why the UN agrees with where Christy and I are on this, and I would imagine we have a little more spine than the UN does.
Right.
Because I don't know about you, but the more research that I've done over this last week and a half, it gets harder and harder to what's the word, to condemn the actions of Hamas. It gets harder and harder, because
I mean, if you read what they stand for, just go. I didn't know. I said, let me go find out, just like you. Like, well, let me go. I can't condemn something unless I actually go check it out. And I'm going, well, I want that. We don't have that either. I would like that too. I yeah, nothing like you would think. Nothing about bombing Israelis or kicking them out of anything. It's all about education for all their people and fairness for all. And I don't know. It was just we're sold. There's a montage of video. God, I wish I could give credit to who made it. It's one of the more famous leftist news YouTube channels, but they put it together and it's pretty long and it's one after another after another after another after another mainstream someone in the news talking about this topic, but talking at it like Israel has to protect themselves because they're being attacked over here and they're being attacked from over here, and it's just like uh even
so,
people that I was like, why?
on that
Yeah.
note, and I want to maybe um, say this over and over as we get a different number of viewers. um, as we go on here. I do want to say that I completely am in agreement that Israel has the right to defend itself.
Yes.
Absolutely. Any country does and should.
Any person.
Any people.
Does. Any people.
Any people, any person, right?
Agreed.
There's a difference between defending yourself and occupying an oppressive people, right? Yes. So that being said, when I say that I am having a really hard time condemning Hamas at all, it's because any peaceful actions taken by Palestinians, just peaceful protests that take place further away than the 300 yard or foot.
Yes, they're definitely not committing any crimes when they're doing their peaceful walking, their protests that they do.
And they want them away from the wall that separates Israel from Gaza by 300, I forget again, feet, yards.
Right. And what are the Israeli law for a terrorist if a terrorist touches that 300 foot?
What is it?
Shoot to kill.
Shoot to kill. Yes. Well, that's something else that, dang. All right. I want to try to stay on track, but I will caveat that is also for anyone who breaks curfew. And curfew starts whenever Israeli police walk into Gaza and say, curfew, 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 get inside, curfew, stay off the streets, curfew. It doesn't matter if it's 10 days. If you come outside during curfew, the orders are officially shoot to kill.
Yes.
Doesn't matter if it's children or adults or anyone. Doctors, it is shoot to kill. That is their orders. This is an occupying force. That's why
100%.
it's atrocious. And the Palestinian people aren't citizens of Israel. Israel just occupies the area. So there is no way for them to vote in a different government that is in control of their lives.
No, actually, political action is illegal, and also the punishment for that is also to shoot to kill. So
gathering of 10 people is considered a threat.
Protesting is shoot to kill.
Is shoot to kill, yes. And I was shown on a video today one of the rubber bullets that they shoot at protesters. Like at the Great March of Return just a couple of years ago, and those bullets are little metal.
Yeah, they're metal. Just
they have covered in plastic.
Yes.
And they literally shoot those at the heads of children.
Yes, they do.
And they snipe them. You know that they can see them.
Yes,
and
they do.
One specific day that Abby Martin was there recording, they killed 60 people. They just randomly heard another fire and another person would drop dead that were protesting, and they were told to stay 300 away, 300 units, whatever that is. And they were at least 500 units away, and they didn't care. It was a massacre that day. And this is not something that we report. So getting back to the main story here. This past month was the month of Ramadan, which is the holiest month for people in the Islamic world, and they were praying in Jerusalem and at a mosque, Al-Aqsa.
I can't. You're better than me. My tongue just says you are not graceful enough. I cannot. I can't.
I'm trying to do it justice. Al-Aqsa Mosque, and they went into the mosque and they raided it. They smashed things. I'm sorry, the they is the Israeli police, and also just people outside praying during the month of Ramadan, who are out in Jerusalem just practicing their religion, which Christy and I both agree that people have the right to, practice their religion, whatever it is.
We might both
or might
look at
be
you like
different.
you are doing some magical dance around the magical beanstalk, but you're welcome to believe it.
Absolutely. It's a freedom that people have, as well as we have the freedom to not. It works both ways. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And there's enough video to show that, again, the IDF just comes up and kicks these people over and sticks a gun to their head and just tells them to get. And they're doing no more than what Israeli people do when they go and pray in the holy city. It's disgusting, but
You guys,
this is apartheid.
it
This
is an
is racist.
apartheid. And when I tell you I did 2 weeks and I was so ready to tell you, you guys already know there was history involved. I mean, come on. It's me. There was all this history involved. And it's so important, all that history. But I mean, it's already available. I can go find out all this information. What I wanted after the
So
ceasefire
easy to
happened
find.
today is, yeah, something different. They are doing the same thing that their founder, I went back to the history of when World War II helped create this Israel, which
In
had been in the
48,
making. I'm sorry?
in 48,
Yes. Wait, well, I went way before then. This is when
oh
I
yeah,
started, but I'm talking about this time, right here, the founder. Talking about Palestinians, talking about the indigenous people that were already there. He mentions the water to eliminate their access to water. We will dry up their crops. We will dry up their orchards. They won't have water to clean and they will just leave.
is this the British?
Never been a two-party like on their side. That's just been like the carrot hanging over here to keep getting them to do all the things that we did to the indigenous people here, but there's never a carrot. And now, guys, I can't even talk to you about a two-state system. They have put themselves everywhere so
It's a
that
farce.
there couldn't be two states there unless there's like your state within a state of that state over there. Like, they did this on purpose. So now they can either be grown-ups and have a country that's a democracy where everyone's equal, or they're going to have to commit genocide. Like, what else are you going to do?
That's pretty much how it's set up right now. There's
No.
very little middle ground.
I feel like it's different this time. Like, I've been screaming this for a long time. I feel like it's different this time. Israel's terrified that we will say, you don't get this billions a year anymore. You just don't. They then cannot afford to keep them separated.
What we can't afford, speaking of afford, is supplying Israel with aid of any sort at all anymore. Like, we really need to take BDS way more seriously in this country.
Yes, they shouldn't get any aid. They're a first world nation.
Yeah,
they have education for all and healthcare for all. No.
Better than what we have. It's not completely universal, but yeah.
No,
it is better
you're right. You're right.
And it's this is probably, if we had an overall message besides this is bad and Israel is the worst of the two evils, if you have to pick between two evils, the moral of the story is, if we're the greatest nation the world has ever seen, we should look at who our friends are. And Saudi Arabia and Israel are not the kind of friends a great nation should be friends with.
If it was the 90s, we would be the mean girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, with
That's a nice
Israel
yeah.
and Saudi. Yeah. And I would be half-baked.
Yeah. If this was
Great movie, by the way.
If this was the 80s, we'd be the kitchen as Israel is Michael Myers.
Ooh,
We
scary.
supply the knives. Yeah. So, again, trying to go back. So what had happened is the IDF assaults not even protesters at this point, just people in prayer.
Yeah.
When there are Palestinian protests against these assaults that Israeli forces are committing on their people of their race and religion. And then they start assaulting and killing the protesters. So Hamas, who is the legitimate political power.
Yeah, democratically elected by the people. So it's not like this. It's not like ISIS took over.
No.
That's the idea that I get though when I talk to people here. They think Hamas is this terrorist organization that took over Gaza, and I'm like, oh, we have so far to go.
I thought it was a dude. I thought it was a singular person.
That's a badass name. I'm gonna give that name to a pit bull if I ever get one. Gaza.
Yeah.
Right.
But it kind of shows you how much how little we know about what goes on over there. That just Hamas can be mistaken as just a name, right?
The world politics are very important, I think, for humanists especially. We really need to realize the world is not this tiny little bubble we reside in. And the more we know, the more empathetic we grow.
Yeah. And in this case, it is so important to realize that
yes, Theo is correct.
Hamas is a legitimate political power in Gaza, whether you call them the T word or not.
Right.
They're the legitimate political power. And the T word, I don't want to say too much, is just, it's a label. Labels that are as helpful as they are harmful. I say it over and over. And we label it on anyone. What's really interesting is any occupied people who protest, say Uyghurs in China or any place where there is an oppressed people like China or Russia or anywhere that we are a combatant of the larger country, those people are heroes. If it's somewhere where we have allies like Saudi Arabia.
You are catching on.
Yeah.
Yes. Like the Sandinistas in South America.
And Venezuela.
Yeah, they're the T word. Yeah. Now you get it.
Yes.
Now you get it.
It's and if you just take time to look at which of these terrorists are people who protest allied countries of ours, it's pretty hard to say that this is just a coinkydink.
Right.
It's very hard to say that.
Yes,
and to stay logically principled in any way.
Yeah.
That was something that was just pointed out to me in the last couple of days. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And I pay attention so much, and I hadn't caught on to that pattern yet. But as soon as it was said, I'm like,
yes.
Fuck. Shit.
Yeah, these
Missed that pattern.
realizations are is when you realize them, they're so in your face this whole time, it almost makes you mad that you didn't see. And it's been
Gosh.
emotionally heartbreaking, infuriating watching live footage of people who are actually out there on their own dime, just looking to help if anybody's stuck somewhere getting shot, and people have to back up out of the shooting area because they don't want to get shot. And uh, you know, there's been so much of that, and I'm never gonna unsee that. And I'm here in my privilege, in my air condition. I ate today. I'm not in any pain. I don't have bullets at my head, and it's too
You
much
get
for me.
electricity for
I
more than
have
4 hours a day? You get
what?
electricity for more than 4 hours a day?
Yes, I get electricity for more than 4 hours a day. I can drink the water and not get sick and die. Yes, I
Yeah.
can take a shower. And
Your
even
oppressive government
I,
doesn't tell you
it's
how many
too much
calories
for
you're allowed
me.
to eat?
I I don't know if I'm going to stop seeing certain images when I close my eyes. This one
Yeah.
was hard, and the ceasefire, that's why I had to change my story, because bullshit.
Yeah.
Since when? Name me a time that when there's been a right wing government in Israel that ceasefire has meant anything to them. Just name me a time.
Yeah, because um, the Israeli police have just went right back to
I'm
rubber
prepared.
bullets at a protesters.
Right.
I mean, this is a ceasefire. They're not bombing Gaza anymore. Um, but the point is, and I'm sorry we keep bouncing around, everyone, because there's so much to cover, and it's so hard to tell you a linear storyline.
Well, and it's happening in real time, like this.
Yeah, and so many insist that, well, you have to look at the history. Well, yeah, I mean, you can look at the history all you want, and there's a lot of justifications that either side could make. It looks pretty pathetic on the
If
Israeli
any
argument.
of you guys would like some lectures that you can just listen to of history professors or people who are into history and have wrote books about this topic, so that you can just listen, send me a message and I will send them all to you, and you can listen to your heart's content, because that way when you do get the history, the actual history, not the winners from any side's history, the all of it's been compiled and here is it in order history. It
Looks
it's
pretty grim.
so easy to what's the word? Not fucking repeat it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we should know
Okay, that's
better.
more than one word, but
Yeah, no, it's okay. So the point
I
is
over
here,
grammared.
over grammared. The point is here that I'm trying to get to is that when we started hearing about the attacks on Israel and that Israel has to respond, that wasn't the beginning. That's the point, is that peaceful protesters and some people who throw rocks at Israeli police are gunned down every single day in Gaza. No matter what they do, because their goal is very clear and spoken aloud, that they just don't want the Palestinians there. They want all of this land and more, um, um, to be Israel, and they don't want Arabs in their land. Um, and there are so many people in Israel who don't understand what goes on 50 minutes away from them. That is another fact. There are so many. But it doesn't change the fact that these things are happening, whether they know it or not. Um, every Israeli citizen is supposed to serve in the IDF when they turn 18. All of them. And I mean, at some point they should know. And that doesn't mean that they should be killed. It doesn't mean that we should hate the Israelis. That's not at all what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that these things are happening. Kind of like, I made the comparison today. Americans often don't know when a corporation here in the States are putting a pipeline through a sovereign Native American land. And
Can I get an amen?
Those indigenous people, like a Standing Rock, all gather together to protest it, and we don't cover it very much in our news. We don't know what's happening with the indigenous people in our area. We really probably shouldn't expect all Israelis to understand what is going on in Gaza and in the West Bank. It's sad, but it's true. But if Israel has the right to defend itself, which it does, Gaza has to as well. Has to. And if you disagree, you are absolutely being unreasonable and illogical. It is called a double standard.
And scientifically, a poo-poo head.
The poo-poo head. So, and part of the argument tends to be that Palestine is not a state. It's not real. These people are just living on Israeli land. But as far as the UN is concerned, that's not how it is. And the Israelis were giving this land, the Jewish people were given this land that was occupied by this indigenous group of Palestinian people.
Actually, lots and lots of groups. It was lots and lots of different groups of people from all over the world that had lived there for hundreds and thousands of years. So it's really complicated. It's not like it, here, the natives, how there were so many different tribes. We lost languages and tribes wherever. Same exact thing happened there.
Yeah.
We're like, hey, we already did it. We'll show you how.
Yeah. And since Israel won the wars, they write the history and they say we won this land. We took it away from, these people who were trying to kill us. When in actuality, at first, they welcomed the Jewish people there with open arms. But they wanted there to be a stopping point. Just like not all of like European Jews can come down here. Like there's only so much space. Like there's not a lot of space there. And that's something else I need to get to here in a minute.
I mean, yeah, a state that's only for one color of person or one sex of people or one color of hair or one religion is fucking weird and culty. Period.
That is that.
That's that.
Yeah.
And if you think you're one of whatever it is better, that's called supremacy. And supremacy is a type of gross doo-doo headness that we don't like. You can't be in our club.
So I forgot to include this in my notes.
Well,
but this is the main issue that we are dealing with, is that the Israeli government is currently a far-right fascist government that is hyper-nationalist, much like our own country. It is hyper-nationalist. And you can't let nationalism become exceptionalism, because it's just another word for superiority. And when you are superior, that makes others inferior. And when those inferior people are within your borders, whether you drew those borders yourself or not. Those inferior people become the oppressed people. And we don't have to look very far on what happens to oppressed people. Look at the indigenous people of North America and South America. Look at the Jews in Europe in the 20th century. And look at where we are now with the Jewish people and the Palestinian people. It's a pattern. We know what happens when you have a nationalist nation, a superior race, religion, both, because I say that, tribe.
Yeah.
I say that because they occupy the homes of these Palestinian people on the daily. And they say this is for security reasons. We need this for military operations, or we need this because it is of archaeological value to Israel.
They don't have to give them a reason.
They don't.
But what they mostly say is that they think that there is terrorist blah, blah, blah going on here. So they need to use it to keep Israel safe and move in.
And they've changed the laws
and then never leave.
They've passed laws in Israel to make this legal. So when they go to court, the Palestinians always lose. And the state of Israel has ownership of these homes. And they already did, because they said they did decades ago.
Well, every Israeli citizen, when they are 16 years old, gets their letter saying that they are now property of the military of Israel, of the Israeli military, at age 16, and they have until their whatever birthday to enter into the military. No wonder why every single one of them's gone. I mean, think about the United States of America. Less than 1% of the population is part of the military. Israel, everyone is a fucking crazy person. And I'm being hyperbolic. Of course, I don't mean that. I have many friends who are dear to me who are rational and very, very educated and informed. Some are cultural Jewish, some are religious Jewish. None of them are these crazy Zionists we're talking about right now.
No, there's so
and they're not supremacists. That's why, because supremacy is, God, it's so ugly. Like, go put a sheet over your head and burn something in someone's yard. That's what they do here.
It's so I forget the name of them, but it is they're likened to the KKK here in
very, very
and they just hate Arabs. They just don't want them in their land. They just say go back to Iran or Iraq or wherever you want. And the issue is they can't. Like people here, like
where are they going to go?
Different than you, who are born
here.
In the
they're American. Right.
You don't just go back to your homeland. That's how shit works. You're like, oh, my ancient relatives were here and America doesn't want me here, or Israel doesn't want me here, so I have a home here, right? Right?
Oh gosh.
That's how Americans think, or is that how Israelis think, or is that just how extremist ones think? Like it's absolutely absurd by definition.
Tell me if you ever think this too, then, because I've been thinking about this a lot. I even asked Stacy the other day because I've been thinking about this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We're just mammals. We evolved here just like everything else. Who gets to say? And I mean, I'm not saying like I don't know who made up the rules. Please help me tie my shoes. I don't mean like that. I mean like, fuck this system. We make it. We decide. There is no system. We just evolved here. So when this huge corporate conglomerate has so much power that it says, I own all this and you must pay me to use it, what happens when all of us, because there's billions more of us, decide that we're just like, no, kind of, we all live here and use this stuff, so it's all ours and yours and everyone else's. Like, I just had these like existential, like, dudes, we gotta stop being separated.
Yeah.
Because if we realize that there's just a human race and that this planet has enough for every single person to have 4 or 5 meals a day, to have a shelter over their head, to have education, and never run out if we do it right, and to never ever have people suffer again, that on the same opposite level that people will never suffer, we have the ability to change that right now. I can't get that thought out of my head, and that there's people that even have enough money themselves that could change that themselves and don't. And then that makes me think, do we deserve as a species then to do, because that's really gross. And I guess I just have bigger questions than there's answers for. And then so when I see this war, it's so insignificant and brutal, all because someone's fucking fairy princess in the sky says that they're the special people. I just have had a really hard time with this story. Your God says you're the chosen people, so you get to be there only.
So on that point,
Right.
it is important.
I can't get past that point though.
That means. You can't what?
I can't get past that point.
No, and we're gonna stay on it because there's important things to point out. That when interviewed, there's too many. I can't say all Israeli people are like this, because that wouldn't be true. It wouldn't be true. But when interviewed, there's too many people in Israel who respond to the question. So do you think it's right to kill children of Palestine, Arab kids, right, to take this land? And they hardly hesitate before they say yes. And they're like, well, why? How do you justify it? And one of the answers that I heard was that they are just future terrorists. And let me agree for a second. Why do you think they would be terrorists?
Exactly.
Why?
You kill everybody that I love, you think I'm not going to want to take you down, even if it's like a David and Goliath situation? You think I'm not going to go down doing it?
Look at the Punisher. He lost his wife, his son, and his little girl. And so many people in America love the Punisher more than most superheroes.
Well, yeah, but he would win president over anyone else, definitely.
Yeah. He takes revenge over, on anyone who does violent crimes.
He takes matters into his own hands.
Yeah, and that is fitting of the word terrorist, is it not?
Yeah, he's terrifying. People that know he's coming and they see him come around the corner, they're terrified.
But you can relate to him, right?
Absolutely.
So can I. I love the Punisher, especially the first movie that they came out with.
I love the comic. Oh,
yeah, they're good stuff. Also, he's a psychopath in a way. He's not a psychopath. He's not.
No, but something's not right, because you can't just
because he snapped
daily.
Because he snapped.
But he can unsnap once in a while too. So he's definitely made a choice to just live this life over the line that he crossed.
All right. But I mean, his justification stands every day. Does he have anything to lose?
Nothing.
Right? When you drop a bomb on a building in Gaza that is an apartment building where you kill 33 out of 44 members of a family. What do you think that last one's going to want to do?
Right.
This is how Islamic Jihad is built up. This is how ISIS is built up. This is how terrorist groups are built up. Oppressed people who can't do it peacefully or do their day-to-day anymore. They're just a whole bunch of fucking Frank Castles.
Yeah, if you make peaceful revolution inevitable, you make violent revolution inevitable. I mean, like that's what's happening. It
is. This is, and we don't necessarily.
3 generations have been born stuck.
Right.
You know, most people, if they don't like where they are, they can at least try to escape. You can't leave Gaza. They're still leaving. You want to go out and go fishing? You can't. They have military boats that will.
They're not allowed to get supplies to rebuild their homes.
Oh no!
From an attack 4 years ago.
No, there's actually no building or rebuilding. No building material is allowed near.
Because it can be used to make weapons.
Yeah, no, they're just waiting for all of them to die out. You know, over 50% of the population of Gaza is under 18 years old. That's horrible. It's horrible. So they're just waiting. They just don't want to have to, you know, if they don't want to knock down something else. It's already knocked down. So if they let them rebuild it, then they have to knock down more stuff. They just wait. Yeah. Slowly annex.
To extremist Zionist people. This is the goal. Make them want to leave. They don't want to kill all the Palestinians. They just want them to go. Make it unlivable where they are.
That's what they're doing.
And get the fuck out of our land because it is our by divinity.
That's what they're doing.
That's the point.
That's why there's no water. Yeah.
Atrocious. And let me give you the facts, friends.
Yes.
Some that I've been waiting to give you because I wanted to know something today that I didn't know. There were 4,000 rockets that were leveled against Gaza. I will repeat that. There were 4,000 rockets leveled on Gaza. I'm repeating it not because you didn't hear me, but because you need to remember 4,000 rockets. How big is Gaza? Ask yourself this. I'm sure you don't know. I didn't know. It is 140.9 square miles. Detroit, Michigan is 142 square miles, off by 1.1 miles. The population of Detroit is over 600,000 as of a census in 2019. The population of Gaza is 2 million because they packed them all in there. They're not allowed to get building permits and they're constantly kicked out of their homes. And if they repopulate, they have to build up the buildings with whatever rubble that they fucking have. The size of Detroit, 4,000 rockets, 2 million people. I don't need to justify why that's wrong. I don't need to justify me saying that Israel is a terrorist state. I will not back down from that. And I will debate and put money down on anyone who wants to debate me on it. I will win every time. Fucking bring it on. It's
committing war crimes
It's a war crime. Absolutely.
Every single day.
And I'm sick of hearing now that Hamas committed war crimes. Yes, you're right. Move the fuck on.
Right. And
There are
you
bigger
both
crimes.
can be wrong. Yeah, you're both wrong. You're both wrong. And
but
so
the balance,
let's deal with it.
The balance isn't, oh, look how both wrong, they keep going. No, it is both wrong. Israel's up here.
Right. Right.
It's if you don't know, it makes me angry.
And
if
there's
you don't
sanctions
know about this,
also, and the sanctions as well. So all this, and they can't get medicine.
The blockades.
They can't get medical equipment.
Can't
so
get
this
material.
great march of
wheelchairs.
They can't get wheelchairs. There are more amputated limbs in this one area than on any other place on the planet. It's the most concentrated place of amputations because they do not have the medical equipment, nor do they have the doctors or surgeons or hospitals to do that.
Israel leveled an apartment building. They leveled AP offices. They leveled. Let me look here in my notes. They leveled Al Jazeera offices. They leveled an office for Doctors Without Borders.
Yes, there were 19 healthcare facilities destroyed in that.
And how many schools?
That's actually what, and part of what I had too.
That was part of it?
My addition tonight, yes.
And they use the excuse. If you hear this excuse, notice this is a red flag.
Yeah, I think.
Human shields.
Ha!
If you hear it, it's bullshit. And if you agree, if you disagree with me, or if you know someone who would disagree with me, I would be happy to talk with them calmly. But it is absolute bullshit, and it's not hard to prove. Human shields. It is a strip of land the size of Detroit with nearly 4 times the occupancy.
Yep.
And the terrorist party is the political power.
It is a far-right party. It's not the party I would have liked, but it's the fucking party that actually won democratically. Yeah. So what? We had Trump. We had to deal with him. We didn't call him a terrorist and not deal with him. We dealt with him.
We did. And I know another far-right government that was democratically elected in Israel.
Yeah. Bibi Netanyahu was just elected not to be there anymore.
Do we need to call them terrorists? Do we need to?
Actually, he is a war criminal.
I think he should be. Yes. Okay. But does that mean we need to bomb them? No. We need to stop supporting them.
Right.
We need to stop supporting
violence.
We need to stop supporting them, and we need to stop supporting them. We don't need to sell them $735 million worth of weapons to help them continue to occupy.
No. Didn't some of those bombs weigh 5,000 pounds each?
Something like that, yeah.
Right, and we know that there's no military bases in Gaza, right? We know there's no military bases in Gaza. So what's the point of dropping a 5,000-pound bomb on this tiny little area? If you know it's just people. So you're a war criminal. You know this, and you do it anyway.
Yourself back in the Korean War, where we used to air what war looks like. We don't air it anymore. You look up the videos, you see what is happening, and you see how disproportionate the violence is. This wasn't a war.
No.
It wasn't a war in 2017. These are massacres. Yeah. And these are war crimes. You don't fire on civilian populations. The only reason that I I have such a hard time condemning Hamas, at least as much as I do Israel, is because one is it was a response. They told IDF and Israeli police to stop harming, assaulting people in prayer and protesters,
Right.
or they would fire. You don't hear that fucking part in American news. 2, they don't have guided missiles.
No, they don't.
Whatever they target,
They don't. They can't target.
you can't target.
Right. There's no
It's
targeting.
a war crime, but they can't do not a war crime if they need to defend themselves, which
That's
we
the only option they have.
which
Yes.
we should
exactly.
agree that they have the right to do, to defend themselves, right?
Actually, it is in the Geneva Convention that any occupied people or persons have the right to fight back against their oppressor by any means necessary.
That is not a war crime.
And you know who wrote that?
Who wrote that?
Let's see, the United States and Europe and all of our allies and all of us will like signed it saying this is how we're going to do war and we're going to make laws for war. And then I don't know what happened.
So to continue to occupy this people,
yes,
they responded by saying, oh, we're defending ourselves.
Right. Yes, guys, it's 2020. If this ever is viewed just randomly in the future for some reason, it's the year 2020 of our Lord. That's just fun to say. We're still talking about occupation. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
It's still a thing. It's still a thing so much that genocide is also happening right alongside it, just like it does.
Yeah.
You guys, I will be putting the links to a lot of like the lectures, like the 61-day war by the author of the book, and a few other to the Discord tomorrow. I wrote a note to myself, so you guys can get all of that. You know, it just really helps you understand. It's not like this, you know, just happened. It's been happening exactly like it is now. It's just that everyone has phones, and I don't know about you guys, but I have friends that were born and raised in Palestine and then came over here and went to high school with Stacy, my girlfriend of 14 years. And then, you know, so once that information can get to us too easy, they can't go around it and try to say it's something that it isn't anymore. And so I feel like it's different this time. And I did want to share that the Israel attacks Gaza, and it left the healthcare system completely strained and in tatters on purpose. Of course, we have a pandemic going on, right?
Over 50% of their essential drugs are
yes. Depleted. Yes, they're gone. They're gone. And this is information we're getting a week after we would have got it if we got it when we were supposed to get it.
Yeah.
Right. After a ceasefire on Thursday, Palestinians took stock of damage wrought by airstrikes that left doctors dead at least 19 healthcare facilities were destroyed. So then we have Gaza City, is just the scene at Gaza City is described at El Shifa Hospital in the occupied Gaza Strip as catastrophic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we are already working within the extreme limitations, and now we face dozens of victims at a time. Now, this is during a ceasefire, you guys. He told The Intercept, quote, "We try our best to triage the cases, but there are so many wounded. The end result is a lot of deaths and an unbearable load on the medical staff. We are just shattered." Leading up to the ceasefire, announced on Thursday evening the medical professionals of Gaza's main hospital had worked around the clock for more than a week to treat the soaring number of war injuries inflicted by Israeli airstrikes. Nearly 2,000 humans in only 10 days needed medical attention. Medical workers in their facilities have not been exempt from the attacks. By far, no Israeli airstrikes have killed doctors and damaged at least 19 health clinics, drawing increasingly international outcry and condemnation from around the world, as it should. As it should. These are war crimes. Yes, Mac.
To piggyback on that alone,
Mm-hmm.
I listened to the UN meeting on Saturday, and every country that I had heard except one, I think France, fucking France, condemned what Israel was doing to the Palestinian people. And they came up with a resolution, because they wanted a ceasefire, and the U.S. blocked that resolution.
Yes, sir.
3 times. Yeah. And let me tell you a
quote. To be the world's police.
Yes, and Biden agrees with Israel's right to defend itself, as do I, but only to defend itself. So fuck you, Biden. You're as bad as Trump is on this. No, I'm sorry.
No,
Biden didn't name Jerusalem the capital.
Oh, right. But he's continuing. He's continuing exactly where Trump left off. That's all. Because the American government is very Zionist.
Yeah. So let me give you a quote from Biden decades ago on the issue of Israel, and it might have the dollar amount wrong, but the rest of the quote is correct. So please forgive me if I got the dollar amount wrong. I typed it from memory. If we didn't have Israel in the Middle East, we would have to create it. It's the best $30 billion investment, military investment we ever made. Tells you why we support them so much, because they are our military base in the Middle East.
No, they are. And we are allowed to do a lot more cool things there than we are here, because they are a theocracy. And so, if you were to say leave the country because you didn't agree with killing the innocent people that you were occupying, so you left so you didn't have to join the IDF, that's blasphemy, first of all, besides a whole bunch of other crimes. And now you're never allowed back into your country again, and they will shoot to kill you. Guys, and we're funding them. Every time the Saudis or Israel buys like $700 billion worth of weapons, my heart sinks to the ground, because I'm thinking, who's the fucking dumbass that gave the person who has been running around screaming, I'm gonna get a gun and kill people, gave them a gun? Like, who did that? That's what we're doing. We're giving the scariest theocracies on the planet the scariest weapons we can ever even think of.
And remember, those occupied people that they're using those weapons on become extremists, terrorists that hate the U.S. because the weapons that their families are murdered with have our fucking stamp on them. And we wonder why people in the Middle East hate us.
Right.
And they don't all. No. What people in Palestine
they're terrified of our military.
They are. But what they want, what they say specifically, what they want from Americans is not to just get physically involved. They want them to acknowledge it, spread the word maybe, and stop supporting Israel. They just want us to cut it out. Please stop helping Israel.
I agree.
Because they are killing them. They are mowing the grass, is this disgusting term that the Israelis use when they cut down Palestinians. They're mowing the grass. Things that we sell them and subsidies that we give them because their location is beneficial for our military.
It's exhausting.
It's absolutely abhorrent. It's disgusting. It's one of the worst things that we do in this world as a country is support Israel and Saudi Arabia both.
It is.
We would be better off helping Russia.
I agree. We would be better off if the three world powers, China, Russia, and the US, got together with our sciences and with our discoveries of other everythings and, just see how far we could go as a species. But
on diplomacy rather than
diplomacy. Yeah.
War.
Let's share our toys, guys. And there's more toys for everyone.
Yeah. There's plenty anyways.
Yeah. So, well, I did want to say the swelling number of patients, casualties among the medical staff, and attacks on infrastructure surrounding the medical facilities all compounded a long-standing crisis in the Gaza Strip, which has been besieged by Israel for a decade and a half. Quote, the war injuries are the most brutal additional burden on the healthcare system infrastructure that was already on its knees because of the occupation's systematic de-development of Gaza's healthcare sector. And Dr. Osama Tantanus, a Palestinian pediatrician with Physicians for Human Rights, Israel, quote, said, quote, Gaza's doctors and staff are absolutely inspiring. They're hardworking, they're professionals, but they're working in an intentionally broken system by the occupation, always pushed to its most extreme limits. It's hard to work in. Harazin has said he and his colleagues have only slept a few hours here and a few hours there during the hostilities, because, quote, the need is nonstop and there's just not enough doctors. The few times he's reached his home through the Israeli shelling, he was physically and emotionally exhausted, quote, barely able to open my eyes or have a good chat with my family. He just slept. He and his colleagues are, quote, haunted by the sounds of screaming children and all the shredded bodies they'll never be able to unsee. Since last Monday, at least 243 Gazans, including 66 children, were killed by Israeli airstrikes, including United States-made warplanes and bombs to deliver. 12 Israelis have been killed by rockets fired by Gazan militants, which, Max shared all of that at the beginning. But now that we've talked about it, to hear that again, knowing it's just nonstop, it's so important that we all stand up and say no more, because if we don't, they have no intention of stopping. They want the greater Israel, which would envelop even more than what they have now. It would be a couple of different other states. They want Iraq. They want it all to be Israel, because in their book, Once Upon a Time, they have to get all the Jews to a certain place. And once all the Jews get to a certain place, then the Savior can come back. La, 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 la. So, and I know that sounds crazy, guys. That's what we're dealing with. And that's why people are dying. And that's why it's so important that the secular community speaks out about why it's important to not have a theocracy and to not give money to a theocracy. This week, in response to the alarming scenes of civilian devastation emerging from Gaza, several United States lawmakers launched efforts to block the transfer of more U.S. weapons to Israel. Last week, Representative Rashida Tlaib, the first Palestinian American member of Congress, delivered an impassioned speech on Palestinian human rights on the House floor, and 25 lawmakers condemned Israel's forced displacement of East Jerusalemite Palestinians from their homes. This movement in Washington follows weeks of online organizing around disturbing scenes of Israel's disproportionate violence against Palestinians on the ground across the Holy Land. I hate that it's even called the Holy Land. Unless there's holes in it that you keep tripping, let's not call it the Holy Land. All the violence against Palestinians across the land that all these religions think is holy. In recent weeks, Palestinian activists mobilized demonstrations, strikes, and viral social media campaigns providing new entry points to Israel's long-standing human rights abuses against Palestinians. The unfolding violence and resistance has opened new conversations about the United States' unconditional military support for Israel, even as congressional resolutions on the issues are unlikely to advance. I think that these are great ideas. I don't care whether they right now make waves or they just get people talking. We just have to keep doing them until it doesn't make the news. It's just because now we're on to the next step, and the next step is making news. When a war hits, the Gazans are starting from a situation that is already dire, a situation that is already unexcusable and unacceptable. So, by Monday, Gaza's Al-Shafa hospital ensued a desperate plea for volunteers to donate blood and warned that shortages of critical supplies, including water, electricity, and fuel, were jeopardizing their patients' care. By Wednesday, Gaza's Ministry of Health released an emergency $46 million appeal in response to the infrastructure damages and shortages within the Gazan healthcare sector. The escalating war casualties, paired with the pressures of the coronavirus pandemic, threatens to collapse a healthcare system that human rights groups say was already overwhelmed and at its capacity, deliberately degraded by the Israeli siege. Quote, when we see these images of war in Gaza, people often forget that this is a territory that has been under siege for nearly 15 years. What that means is that the Palestinians inside the territory have been drip fed everything from food to medicine, Amnesty International's Shireen Tredos told The Intercept when she did this interview. Quote, when a war hits, the Gazans are starting already from a situation that is dire, a situation that is already unexcusable, unacceptable. And they're bombing the roads near hospitals deliberately. We're talking about a first world nation with all their technology is bombing roads and putting landmines on roads to hospitals, and then bombing people where they are so that they have to get to the hospital and get blown up on the way to the hospital. You guys, I'm not fucking okay with this, and I'm not gonna be okay with this. And I told you this story changed me. There's no fix for this except for unfortunately, yeah, revolution. I don't know how else to fix this. I don't know how else. There's no two-state solution option that's off the table. They did that themselves. So Shame on you, Israel. And, talking to just regular people like Mac and myself who are out, I take Bean for a walk 4 times a day, sometimes 5 if he's lucky. And regular people that live in Israel are so nonchalant about, just like how Mac said, when asked questions like, how do you feel about, keeping them locked up in Gaza, open air. I heard a woman just nonchalantly, my age, a regular mom, probably very empathetic about a million things, probably loves her children is so much, said, well, we can't put them all in prison. Like, it's okay to kill them because you just can't put them all in prison.
Yeah, and it's this narrative that they're all terrorists occupying land that belongs to them. I mean,
if you're Jewish, if you're Palestinian and you're watching this, I love you. Mac loves you. That's all I have to say.
I'm very sorry.
You guys are the same. You're a human. So yes, you're welcome here.
That makes this really sad, and really,
God, prison. Yeah.
I don't need to describe it. Point is, if you are an American Jew, and you want, for any reason, to come to Israel and buy a settlement in Palestine, you have more rights than those Palestinian people who have lived there, their generations.
Yes, for like thousands of years or hundreds of years.
Yeah. And it's, if you can bring any kind of documentation that my family owned this in the 1800s and the 1700s and the 1600s, then they say, cool, those of you who live here now, get the fuck out. You
by gunpoint.
By gunpoint. And if they
refuse,
the orders again are shoot to kill. And that is not just the man of the house who's saying, you can't take my home. This is my home. I don't care. Like, no, this is our home. Go away. Get out. They kill the kids too. Like, they'll kill them all. Because Jewish people of religion or just cultural Jews, if you can slightly prove at all that your family has owned land here before, even centuries ago, you can overtake people who live there.
Yes.
And
you don't even have to have any land. You can convert.
Yeah.
By your word and your actions, of course, you can convert to Judaism.
And people buy these settlements, and they say that they only want.
They will teach you to speak Hebrew. They will teach you. Go be a Jew. They will help you get set up on your feet. I promise. Our hard-earned tax dollars here in the U.S. will help make sure that happens. It is a crazy grift, this whole religion thing. I don't even think that, the original popes knew how big of a grift this was going to be, and how, we're even talking about Catholicism and the Bible at all with this topic being Jewish and Palestine. It's just because of that's how entwined the story is.
Yeah, the UN calls for these settlements to stop immediately. Like they say that this is illegal under international law for anyone to take the land of the Palestinians. Like Israel does it, but it is illegal under international law that they do it. Like the other countries don't back them up. This is very illegitimate.
Well, they have the U.S. on their side, and
It's
name a
legitimately
country
because the U.S.
name a country that's going to step up to Israel and the U.S.
Germany.
Name one.
Yeah. But as far as the other countries are concerned, like, no, this isn't what the not the UN, what preceded the UN, the League of Nations,
Yes.
agreed on. And 48? Yeah, in 48.
I would have to
There's a
double check,
map.
but I'm pretty
There's
sure.
a few maps. Yeah. And Israel was supposed to be a nation, but they weren't supposed to take over the whole area.
Right.
There are constant calls for Israel to return to the agreement made with the UN in '67, because everything else is internationally illegal. But Israel just creates more loopholes for itself to take over more land, and it's not legitimate, and it's not right, because even if your family owned it, like, generations ago, there are people who live there now. They're
Right.
human beings, and they
and
don't
right, they
deserve
don't
to die so
they
you
don't
can take the
they're
land that you
dead.
right? Like,
A long time ago they're dead.
like,
We need to get over this stuff.
yeah.
It's,
There really shouldn't be. I was listening to Kim Iverson on this topic. I tried to find everyone, and at the end of her spiel on it, she said, I don't support the right to return for anyone. Like, just stop. Like, people live places now. Like, houses that were taken just decades ago, we're going to have to count our losses. Like, we can't just keep stealing people's homes.
right.
Because that's another crisis. Like, what do you want to do? Do we just continue to kill people until everyone's happy and those who aren't happy die? That's the only solution.
Right.
That is the only solution.
Or put on your big boy pants and everyone is equal.
Yeah, and call it a loss. Like, we have to stop. Otherwise, you're committing not just war crimes, just great immoralities.
Here's the thing. Palestinians are not allowed to vote. And if they became a state where they were allowed to vote, they would never win again. Palestinians would be, the majority would be how a democracy works. And they don't have a majority yet. And that's what they're waiting for.
I mean, I don't think they're waiting for it. I think they just want to stop being oppressed now.
Yeah. Well, they're not allowed to vote, though. They're not citizens. They took away their citizenship. It's like the same thing that's happening in India, where, this woman comes into power, is supposed to be this person about hope and change. Sound familiar? And she immediately comes in and she's taking away citizenship of all these indigenous people and making them flee where they live. Guys, life is so fleeting and so short. We could learn so much if we like, why do you want to punch something because it's different? Really? That's real. I just want to punch it. Why? Because it's different. Like, what is wrong with you?
And I understand, like, most Israelis that are interviewed on this, their view is that all of this land is theirs by birthright.
By Yahweh.
Yes. That's a very big part of it. And that's, I get it. Like I said, one of the people that I listened to, Dr. Mate, he bought into this for a long time. But remember, like, Britain gave this land to the Jews, essentially, when it wasn't theirs to give.
Right. But there was a powerless people there. You notice
Yeah,
they didn't
and
go to Norway and say, this will be yours. No, they
right,
said, it has to have their, special places in it that are from their book. And it has to be where there is powerless people.
yeah, and
And
they
lots
also
of resources. And lots of resources.
there are. They also promised it to Turkey at the same time. So, I
Yes.
mean, depending on how far back
They said what they had to say.
go, yeah, they did because they wanted help. They depending on how far back you go, you find another justification on why someone else should own this land. And eventually,
I wanna own this land. I wanna own this land.
Eventually, it always falls back onto, because as far back as we tend to get on it, God said that this is the Jewish promised land. This land was named for Israel, right?
Word.
And
Yeah.
and what's really sad about this is that these Islamic people and these Jewish people and even Christian people, they all have the same Abrahamic God.
Yep.
They all believe that this is their promised land. This is their birthright.
Yep, they all have the same magic sky daddy. All of them.
It is the same exact promise to all of these people. You can't go back that far because you come back.
Let's go back further and go to Gilgamesh then. Why not? Let's go back further where rocks were our gods. And we'll dance around them naked.
Gods, right?
Isn't that what we did before Yahweh? We were dancing around rocks naked or something.
I mean, it's hard to it's hard to tell which came first, the wind god Yahweh. Or,
it's kind of hard to be fighting and battling when you're naked and dancing, is all I'm saying. Maybe we should be naked and dancing instead of beating each other up. I don't know. There's no way to make light of any of this fucking story. It's worse than David and Goliath. It's like, I am terrified for every single Palestinian. I get to turn it off. I have nightmares. You've seen the little kids. They can't go to sleep because the last time they went to sleep, their building blew up. They're too scared.
Yeah, guys. Body bags. I've seen the body bags and the bodies and this. We become okay with it because of the dehumanization, right? And the excuse that this is just what happens in war, but this isn't a war.
No, it's a war crime.
Occupied territory. It's right. Just.
Do you feel it's different this time? I mean, are you feeling that? Do you think that we can actually take the money away from them? Do you think that?
No, Biden will go for it. I don't think so.
No, maybe not Biden, but if they're scared that the people are talking about it, maybe they'll stop. I don't know. We're talking about people are dying of starving who are doctors, right? Just regular people. It's not a third world area. We've made Gaza into the slum that it is, but the people that are there, just like Syria, super smart, brilliant people living in rubble, and we get to turn it off. So I feel like, I don't know if you feel like that. I feel guilty. Not I don't want to suffer like that, but I also get to go, okay, enough of that for today. And I have to, because oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. And so that's, I guess, why it's so important to make sure that this time's different, guys. We can't give fascists money. And if you guys haven't seen it, there's this photo, and I really wish I knew who the artist was. And one of you guys sent it to me, and I have it saved. I'm going to have it made into something bigger so I can put it. I don't want it up. I don't want anything with anything Nazi on it. Put it up in my house. But it's an Israeli soldier, and it's just like a comic strip drawing. So it's just black and white, like pencil. And he's got his cap on, and he's holding his gun, and he's got, the blue and white, the star, the Israeli flag right here on his helmet. And he's looking into the mirror. And well, it's a window, but during the daytime, windows are like a mirror. And he sees the arm patch, the Nazi arm patch on his arm, in his reflection. Oh, if pictures have 1,000 words, this one's worth 1,000,000. And so that's how I think it's different, because I kind of was like, oh my God, do people know this is out? This is kind of, this will get your career ruined by doing this. But it's that picture should make you uncomfortable. And it should also make you go, yikes. Yeah. How could how can a people that's gone through such a horrific thing be the ones who are perpetrating such an awful thing to another people who cannot protect themselves?
Yeah, there's I don't know if
my legs are asleep.
This conflict's really going to change how we deal with it. I can imagine not. I hope that there will be change. The change that needs to happen is that the Israeli government needs to stop occupying Palestinian territory.
Yes.
I don't think a two-state solution is the right answer anymore. But I don't even necessarily think that that a one-state democratic solution is really going to be.
So, I mean, what do you think then?
I don't know, because
right,
we
revolution.
See that. Yeah. I mean, but I mean, even just letting it get that far. I mean,
no, that means that Israel annihilates anyone who's not Jewish, and it becomes a Jewish ethno-state, which is supremacy at its finest.
Right, because they'll win. They'll absolutely win.
Right.
I mean, I think maybe the best thing that we could hope for is for a different country to offer land to the Palestinian people and forcefully make Israel release people from Gaza and the West Bank. And I'm sure a lot of them would want to go because that's their homes and they want to live there, and they are hoping for a peaceful resolution. So they can.
I see
Jerusalem,
equal for everyone. I'm like you. I don't see how it can happen. I don't know how it can happen.
I don't know either, and I don't.
No.
I mean, I have hope for it, but I don't.
I would want it to be one state, democracy for all, equal for all. Open up Gaza, open up the West, open up everything. Everybody is an Israeli. Name it is I'm an Israeli and I'm Palestinian, but you're both from the same fucking place. Who fucking cares? Call it cock-a-doodle-doo. Who cares? We make it up. It's all made up. We make the stuff. We've just evolved here. That's the weirdest stuff, that we pay to live for stuff that we just evolved on a planet for. It's just, there's so many questions that I have that I feel like there's a lot of grifters grifting on a lot of people. And we need to get together and ungrift the system. And yeah, no, Netanyahu is I did want to not forget to say he did not win. He is not popular, and he's throwing a hissy fit because he would. Error sounds are going off. Sorry, let's see. I'm not a computer person, but
That's my
see,
fault.
it wasn't even my fault. Ah, look at that. Yes, I don't have a solution, but my I think what would be best and what every person who I personally know who is Palestinian, who either was born and raised there and lives here now, or has moved back, or I've stayed in touch with, or family is from there and lives here and has never been there, all of them. And same with all of my either culturally Jewish or religious Jewish friends, whether I grew up with you, whether you're from New York or from Jerusalem. You feel the same way. You just want every single person that's there, all the kids, to have the same quality of education. You want everyone to have the same kind of health standards for their homes to be built so that, they're strong and they don't fall in on. They want the basic things for each other. So if that's what they want, give the people what they want. That's just here's the thing. The Bible is not that. It doesn't say that they make nice. It says that they have to be eliminated and that Jews have to inhabit all of that land. And remember when I told you guys probably many times during the series of the show, I can talk to just about anybody about anything. But when they've been unreasoned into something, where something like I can show them, here, look, it's not that. We have to agree on the facts, and then they look at it and you're like, oh, you're right. So then we can now have it. You can't do that with these people. There are tours in Israel where Christians can go and take the tour of Armageddon, where here's where Jesus will come down with the big flying whatevers, and you'll see people walk them through. They drive to a place and then walk up on a hill and talk about parts of the Bible that are going to happen there because it says so in Revelations, mixed with a lot of things that people just believe because they believe. And white American Christians are their number ones. That's who they sell the tickets to. You guys.
It's because we support them so much.
You guys.
And like we know, like they know that they have our backing, and that's it only helps their cause, right? And to themselves, they're not the bad guys. Like I would like to again make clear that it's not as black and white.
Have you ever had dry mouth? I was just wondering for a friend.
I am utterly confused. Okay. The point that I'm trying to make is that it's not as simple as a black and white issue. Me being the great skeptic, as my channel is called.
Sorry, I had to.
They don't see themselves. It's okay. They don't see themselves as the bad guys, as the Palestinians don't see themselves as the bad guys, as Iran doesn't see themselves as the bad guys, as the America doesn't see themselves as the bad guys. Everyone sees themselves as the good guys. Like everyone has what they assume is a just cause, and you have to go by your own personal set of principles, however you base them, and you need to determine.
Or princessables. We're not sexist at LEAH.
You're correct. you need to look at your principle base and then look at what is happening and see if it fits, and determine what is more good and what is more bad, because just good and bad alone are hard to define.
I agree.
They're
Very nuanced.
They are quite subjective. So you need to measure it on a scale and see what is good and what is bad, right? Don't mind
better
the
or worse.
Better or worse, yes.
Or good.
But also just good or badder. You put those on a scale.
You got a pretty mouth.
You got, thank you. That's part of the point, though. Yes. That's why I completely condemn, and I think that the Israeli side of this conflict are the bad guys. Doesn't necessarily mean the Israeli people, right? It's just like when I say concerning Venezuela, America is the bad guys. We are super duper Dr. Evil when it comes to the Venezuelan conflict. Because we do like notoriously awful things and we meddle in their elections like we're worried about Russia and China doing in ours.
Right.
It's absolutely insane. But we're not always the bad guy. And it doesn't mean that the American people are the bad guys, right?
No, the people of most, right, of all the countries we talk about. I mean, it's rare that it's the people of the country that we're talking about. It's the government of the country that we're talking about. The people are lovely. Most of the people are lovely. There are not good people on both sides.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There are good people and there are not good people.
Right. Yes, exactly. People are nuanced. And also, every person is not the one worst thing that they did also. So, and I believe that of all people. Whatever the worst thing you ever did, you are not that one thing. You are also the best thing you've ever done and everything in between. Right. We're complicated.
I'll unmute myself. So, I'm pretty sure that that's our show tonight.
Yeah, I know.
We really tried to cover what you don't see in American media, right? If you want to know the other side, I'm sure you've seen it on CNN, on Fox. MSNBC has a little bit of dissenting.
Yeah, but listen, I'm telling you, it was just one channel after another of, I mean, not just untrue, just talking points from a foreign country, what a foreign country wants us to think. I can't fucking stand it. It's been a crazy week. It's been, have you seen the meme that's going around and it's George Orwell and it says, "I told ya."
Yeah, and it's disheartening, to say the least. But again, that is our show. Thank you so much all for coming.
Yes,
we will be here again in another fortnight. The
poll was great. The poll was great. The poll, all those that participated in the poll, that's the reason why we chose this topic. We will do more like that. That was a lot of fun because then I get to do what you guys want and I live for you and your entertainment and your knowledge needs. So we can do one of those. I mean, at any time, any one of you guys can say, at me and say, "What's this topic about?" And I will bring it to you. I will go check it out. I think that stuff is fun and it's how I learn. I did want to add that I know that Atheist and his lovely wife, Susan, who are my adopted aunt and uncle, I've adopted myself into being their niece. That's how that worked. I let them know I've adopted myself as their niece. They're okay with it. Everything's good. I have a special gift coming from me and Stacy to my uncle. And he has no idea about it, but he will when he listens to this. So now he's going to be super excited. And that's the only reason why I said all this. Because I want him to be excited about it. Because he's just such a cool guy. If you guys do not follow Atheists on Twitter, you're missing out. Even if you don't follow on Twitter, I talk privately with him and Susan, and they're just really awesome people. It's rare in this very short, hard, unfair, amazing, brilliant, gorgeous, beautiful, crazy, vile life that we live that you meet two people that have gone on such an honest journey and are such an open book, from being in the military and being, far right in your ideology and your thinking, to being a humanist, an educator, a science advocate, a communicator. I adopted him as, no, not even as my uncle. I adopted myself as his niece. I just think you guys, I wanted to put that, maybe they will gain a few more subs. He's significantly undersubbed. He has so much in that monkey brain of his. And because we're here for such a short time, I want to share him with as many people as possible so that that knowledge isn't lost forever when we eventually, as we do, all of our great ones, lose him. So to that, I say I love you guys, and stay humanist, for goodness sake.
For goodness sake.
Yeah, for goblins.